I have some really cool hardware sitting here, or at least I think it's really cool. Maybe you will too. We'll have to find out. Because this video is going to be about said hardware, and we're going to be revisiting the X58 platform with this EVGA X58 SLI LE motherboard. We have a few graphics cards and processors to pair with it. We're going to see what kind of value there is left in this platform in good old 2026. We'll see what kind of performance it has, what games we can run, see exactly where it lies, and if you should spend your money on it. If the occasion right, maybe you can get it for free. That would be even better. But if you have a little bit of spending money, is the X58 platform the way to go? What can we do with this platform? All of these questions we'll be answering today on Custom PC Builders. Listing off all of the core components that will be featured in this video. Other than the motherboard that I just mentioned, I have an Intel Core i7-980X processor, an Intel Core i7-930, an EVGA GTX 1080, an EVGA GTX 590, and last but not least, an EVGA GTX 680 Plus, which is slightly different from a regular GTX 680, and we'll get into more details about that later in the video. Intel's X58 platform, codename Tylersburg, is centered around socket LGA 1366, which a lot of you might not have ever even known existed. It's not a common socket like LGA 1150 or LGA 1151. It's a bit of an oddball, and I think it was used for only one generation. Kind of unique, like the old Intel slotted sockets from the Pentium 2 days. Maybe that was a bad example. They're two complete different sockets. But anyways, we're moving on. The X58 platform introduced the Nehalem microarchitecture to the world and was known for its impressive multi-core performance, hyper-threading, and triple-channel RAM. That's right, triple-channel RAM. Our motherboard has 6 RAM slots, leaving 2 slots for each channel. All of this hardware is at the start of Intel's very famous Core i-series processors that came out right after the Intel Core 2 series processors. The X58 platform houses the first generation of Intel Core i7 Extreme Edition processors. There are non-Extreme Edition processors for this motherboard as well, and here I have one of each. The Intel Core i7-980X for the Extreme Edition, and then the Intel Core i7-930, which is, well, I guess just a normal processor? And not extreme! What is a normal processor? I don't know. Alright, let's take a look at this motherboard. This motherboard in particular has a lot of features that I could list off. Or I could just show you the back of the box and you can pause the video. But I am going to list off some of the reasons why this has been my all-time favorite Intel platform. At least motherboard-wise as of right now. The triple-channel RAM has to be on the top of that list because I thought it was really odd, and I guess I like odd things. It's an odd number in a world of majority even numbers. I like the support for both SLI and Crossfire, which I think the fact that EVGA advertises it supports Crossfire right on the back of the box kind of speaks loud for them because they only create NVIDIA graphics cards. Other features like PCIe 2.0, the 6 SATA ports, and the fact that it supports IED ribbon drives were all very desirable to me at the time. I could take old ribbon drives and extract data from them for friends, family, or even customers. I could take SATA hard drives and use them for my bulk storage, and SATA SSDs for my OS installation. I was very impressed with its performance at the time, and how long this platform has stayed relevant impresses me to this day. Alright, let's unbox this motherboard and see what we're working with here. I'm not sure what all came with the motherboard versus whatever the seller threw in before he shipped the box. But all of this stuff is fresh in from eBay. I haven't even tested it all, but some of it has damage. I'm going to have to do repairs specifically to the GTX 1080 because there's damage to the card, as you can clearly see. I gotta be very careful because I don't have a socket cover on here. Oh. I got this motherboard used, and it was listed as used, but the seller said that it was hardly used, and that it's in brand new condition. Because of that, and the fact that it came with the box and the I/O shield, I was willing to pay a little bit extra money for it, probably more than I should have in comparison to other motherboards on eBay. One thing I never liked about these EVGA motherboards is how high up on the board the socket sits. This could be problematic when paired with certain cases in certain coolers. If you go to mount a 120mm air cooler vertically, the motherboard might not even fit in your case because of the cooler hitting the top of it. You would then have to take that same cooler and mount it horizontally, and I'm not even sure if that's going to work at all. You got the RAM in the way, so yeah. That is something that could potentially be a problem someone faces when building a computer on this platform or when building a computer using these EVGA motherboards. This is everything that came with the motherboard. Looks like we got some SLI connectors, which we might even use. We might use these, I'm not sure yet. We got SATA cables. This is really cool. It's a giant poster that's a diagram of the entire motherboard. I would open it up and show you, but I really don't have the room to do so. Maybe I can link a picture. We got the owner's, what is that? Not the owner's manual, but the user manual. Okay. I would imagine this would have came with the processor. I want to look at that and to see what processor he got for this motherboard when he was using it. And the disk that somebody didn't throw in the garbage. Alright, let's get this test bench all set up so we can start running some games. I'm going to be using the box as a open air test bench. Case? Base? Platform? I don't know what you call it, okay? It's a box. We're hooking the computer up on top of the box. Alright, we're going to start off with the Intel Core i7-930. This is a 4-core, 8-thread processor with a base frequency of 2.933 GHz, and it boosts all the way up to 3.2 GHz. Here's all the details on this processor. You can feel free to pause the video and check them out if you wanted to know more. Sometimes when I get used processors off of eBay, I like to take a cloth and a little bit of rubbing alcohol so I can take the processor and wipe all the little pads clean here. Make sure there's no finger oils or dirt all over it that's going to hinder its connection to the socket. I use 91% rubbing alcohol. It just evaporates away and it's completely fine. You have to take your time with inserting this. Don't just go all crazy and drop it in. I always wiggle it, make sure it's all the way in the socket correctly. And voila. Having gone through a ton of RAM, I think I have a solution as for a RAM kit that we're going to use with our test bench. Now, triple channel kits of RAM, not all that common. Who would have thought? So I thought I was going to have to break up a quad channel kit, but it turns out I have two kits that have nine sticks of RAM. That's weird, right? Anyways, I have these Corsair Vengeance sticks of RAM with heat spreaders on it, but again, it's a quad channel kit, right? But I just so happen to have 2 extra heat spreaders. So with our kit of RAM, I also have some pretty cool vintage heat spreaders to put on. Are these vintage? I can't believe I just said that. Alright, I just lost my whole train of thought. Anyways, we have some heat spreaders for our triple channel RAM kit so we could look even cooler. I got my heat gun out. We're going to start removing heat spreaders and get our kit of RAM together. Cue the elevator music. We have all of the heat spreaders removed and ready to be put onto the new sticks of RAM. I actually had to make cardboard spacers because the old sticks of RAM the heat spreaders came off of. They are dual rank sticks with chips on both sides of the RAM, and the new kit of RAM the heat spreaders are going on are single ranked sticks, so they only have chips on one side of the RAM, and because of that, the new kit, the sticks are a little bit thinner than what the old sticks were, and I had to make a spacer to fill up in that gap. Let's get all these heat spreaders put on our new sticks. Alright, all of our heat spreaders went onto the RAM just fine, and we have a triple channel RAM kit. So we're going to go ahead and install this into the motherboard. There is a total of 24 gigabytes of RAM going into this test bench. That is 6 4 gigabyte sticks running in triple channel, so that's 2 sticks per channel. This is always my favorite part. It's so satisfying installing RAM. I think this is my favorite part of building computers or running test bench. Right there with installing the graphics card, because that's always satisfying as well. To cool the processor, I'm going to be using this 120mm air cooler. It looks a little beat up. It's definitely been used a lot. It's been rode hard and put away wet. So basically this is my test bench air cooler. I have homemade mounts and homemade brackets for it to fit just about every socket you can imagine. I do have a dedicated LGA 1366 cooler, but I want adequate cooling, and I think this is going to do a better job at cooling our processor. This is actually kind of close to what the stock Intel cooler would have been, or that would have came with like the Intel Core i7 5980X processor. So I should get decent temps with this. It should allow us some overclocking. We'll just see if it's not adequate cooling, or if I have any problems with temperatures. We'll figure something out from there. So I gotta take apart my mounts to get them ready to install into the computer. I pretty much just put it together like this just to make sure I don't lose any of the hardware. So without having a back plate, I don't want to over tighten and bend the board, so I gotta be really cautious about that. After finally taking apart all of my custom mounting hardware for the CPU cooler, I was able to slowly get everything installed into the motherboard so that I can get ready to install the actual cooler itself onto the motherboard finally. Don't watch me screw around with my nuts. After cleaning both surfaces with rubbing alcohol, I'm going to apply my Arctic MX4 thermal paste, and then I'm going to apply the cooler. Sometimes when I'm setting up test benches and testing out computer hardware, I apply a cooler in which I know I'm going to remove in a few minutes anyways. I like to buy like really cheap bulk syringes of thermal paste, and I'll use that cheap thermal paste instead of something that costs more. That way I'm just not, using the thermal paste for 5 minutes and wiping it off and just tossing it in the garbage. That's like a huge waste of money, and yeah, I got sick of doing that, so. But this cooler is going to be on for a while, so I used Arctic MX4, and I'm going to do the same thing with the i7 980X processor once we get to that point. I tightened up all of the hardware, mounted the fan to the cooler, plugged the fan into the motherboard, and voila, cooler is installed, and we're ready to move on to the next. Cooler is installed. It was at this point in the build when I realized that I ran into a bit of a roadblock when it comes to what SSD I'm going to be able to use with this system. I can't exactly take an M.2 SSD and hook it up to our motherboard here. This is before M.2. Although I did hear somebody did get an M.2 NVMe SSD hooked up to the X58 platform and have it work. Might be something to look into. Anyways, there's a bit of a flash storage shortage going on right now, and that's what's affecting all of the RAM prices and prices for SSDs. I'm down to the nitty gritty here, and every one of these SSDs is nothing but 120 gigabytes. 120 gigabytes is not going to cut it. I don't even think you can install Grand Theft Auto with just 120 gigabytes. But I have a solution. This is my laptop. It is close to 18 years old, and it is only just now starting to give up and fail on me. Inside this laptop is a 500 gigabyte SATA SSD, so we're going to extract it. Problem solved. You know what's funny is both of these systems are the exact same age. They're both first generation Intel systems. This has a first generation Intel Core i7, and we obviously know what processor this system has. Let's flip this over and see what we're working with. The SSD should be right under this plastic cover, and it should only be a few screws. I have my 500 gigabyte SSD. I'm still going to run two SSDs, but I'm going to use one of the smaller 120 gigabyte SSDs. This gives me just a little bit of extra space for, overclocking tools, benchmarking tools, video games, or anything that I'm going to need to assist me with finding out what kind of performance we're going to be able to get out of the system. I'm going to use this 700 watt Thermaltake power supply, though I am a little bit worried that it only has one PCIe power cable for the graphics cards, but I think we can make it work. Let's get power plugged in. Make sure that's in all the way. There we go. Kind of a strange spot for a CPU power cable, but we'll make it work. There we go. Get this cable ran out of the way. That's good enough. I have just a basic network card that'll give us Wi-Fi and Bluetooth connectivity, and then after that we can move on to our graphics card. I'm going to start all of our testing with this EVGA GTX 680. It's actually a 680 Plus, which is a little bit better than just a regular GTX 680. This one has 4 gigabytes of VRAM. Normal GTX 680 just has the 2 gigabytes. I think there are other 4 gigabyte cards, but this is EVGA's 4 gigabyte GTX 680 Plus. At the time, this was one of the best graphics cards that you can buy. They have the GTX 690, which is just basically 2 GTX 680s on one card. It's kind of that's so hard to explain. I can go on and make an entire video about just the graphics cards here, and I'm really trying not to get too far into the details because this video is about the X58 platform and not the graphics cards. But anyways, we're going to use the GTX 680 Plus, and then we're going to move on to a more modern, higher performing graphics card. That way we can make sure, there's no bottleneck going on whatsoever, and we're going to be getting all of the performance out of our X58 platform. Alright, let's get the GPU plugged in. Into the motherboard. Carefully. Just like that. There we go. Our test bench is all set up. Just got to plug in the keyboard and the video cable, and we'll all be ready to start testing all of this beautiful EVGA hardware. How could you not be excited? Incoming corny montage. I got everything plugged in, hooked up, and ready to go. We're at the part where we press the power button and then just pray. Praying. Still praying. Yes. That's a good sound. Awesome. Look at that. Everything is good. Looks like we're installing Windows. I have to say I got pretty excited when the motherboard posted into its BIOS. I got my Windows 10 flash drive. I'm going to plug it in. We'll get Windows installed so we can start running some games. After installing Windows, I was quickly disappointed by the fact that I'm not going to be able to run 1440p above 60 Hz, but I can run 1080p above 140 Hz. I'm not entirely sure which one's better, and I guess it's kind of the matter of opinion. I mean, there's some fact based behind it, like in first-person shooters you get an advantage with the higher frame rates, but I've always been a person who enjoyed the quality, so I would probably play games at 1440p 60 Hz, to be honest with you. Jumping right into it, we're going to start off with 1080p 120 Hz, and we're going to play Grand Theft Auto, see how it does. This is the normal, non-enhanced version of Grand Theft Auto. I went through and adjusted all of the settings to where I think it's going to give me a good quality experience, both performance-wise and video quality-wise. So, I mean, I guess we'll see how it does, so. Moving on. We're going to start with story mode. So please keep in mind that the video quality and frame rate of the video that you are seeing is visually limited to what my capture card is able to capture. It's recording at 1080p 60 FPS. What you want to pay attention to is the FPS that the game is running at, and it's displayed in the black bar at the top of the screen along with other information. You also want to pay attention to the video graphic settings that I just showed you. On top of that, what resolution the computer and the game is running at. The actual picture quality of the game looks a lot better in person. Maybe one day I'll have a better capture card, but this is what I'm limited to, at least for now. Anyways, the game is running very smooth and it's giving a good gaming experience so far. This is an older game, but there are still a ton of people who play this game. There's a massive user base for both online and offline gameplay, and if your computer hardware can run this game smoothly like what we are seeing right now, that within itself will bring value to the hardware. I have built a ton of computers for people who just wanted to play Grand Theft Auto. When this game first came out for the Xbox 360 and the Xbox One, the game was made to run at 30 frames a second. And with that being said, this game runs really well at lower FPS. Anything above 30 FPS is giving you a better gaming experience than what the original gaming experience would have been when the game came out for the Xbox 360 and Xbox One. Our 60 frames a second is giving an exceptional gaming experience, and honestly, it runs really smooth, but let's see if the same can be said with Grand Theft Auto Online. Right from the start, you can see a pretty big drop in our frame rate. I mean, it's not like it's running all that bad. I could probably play for a while like this, but I think we could get better frames by just adjusting the settings a little bit. I don't think we'll lose much video quality, but still be able to gain some more frames. If you wanted to compare the settings that I have changed, you can probably pause the video and look at each setting. Getting right back into the game, you can see that we are getting a little bit more frames than what we were before. The game it's not like it's giving a bad gaming experience. It's definitely running smooth. It's better than, like I said, the original gaming experience. I wouldn't mind playing the game like this at all. I would enjoy it. Let's change our resolution to 1440p and see how it does. The monitor I'm using is a 1440p 165Hz monitor, and as soon as I got into the game I can see that the picture quality is significantly better. There was a little bit of frame tearing at first, but as I got into the gameplay it ran very smooth in story mode, and it gives a really good gaming experience overall again. Let's see how it plays online. We definitely take a pretty big hit to our frame rate, but I mean, look how the game's running. You tell me if you would play the game like this. I think it looks rather smooth, surprisingly. Overall, Grand Theft Auto is definitely a game you could run on this hardware. With the video getting kind of on the longer side, I'm getting pretty eager to put all of the updated or upgraded hardware into our test bench. But let's see how some of the other games that we have downloaded plays on the computer as is. We're going to change our resolution back to 1080p so we can start to run Fortnite. Fortnite is another one of those games where if your computer is capable of running it, it brings significant value to the hardware that is in your computer. The game has a massive online user base, a ton of people play it, and there are a lot of people who pay for a computer just so they can play that game. Getting right into the gameplay, when we were in the pregame area waiting to be dropped into the match, I was getting a few stutters, but that seems to be a really common theme with this game. I've had the same stutters even on computers with significantly better hardware. Beyond that, it gave a really good gaming experience with an acceptable frame rate, but the game is in performance mode, and because of that, it looks a little bit different than what it does when running DirectX 12. DirectX 12 seems to have a little bit more graphic quality than what the performance mode has, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the game looks bad, and I really enjoyed playing the game as is. I didn't mind at all, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who have a really low budget who want to buy a computer who also would not mind how the gameplay is just like this and how the game looks as is. Other than playing with the keyboard and mouse that I'm not used to, I was able to play the game rather well. I even got first place. Now let's change it to 1440p and see how it runs. 1440p is actually my native resolution, but because of the capture card it's saying 1080p is my native resolution, and that's what it's recording at. I left all of the settings the same as it was when I was playing 1080p, so the only thing that is different is the resolution in the menu settings here. Again, right from the start, the picture quality is much better than what it was at 1080p. The game seems to be running really smooth as well, also giving a really good gaming experience with the settings just how they are. In this occasion, I would prefer to keep playing this game at 1440p because there's not much of a difference performance-wise, but the picture quality is much better, so sounds kind of like a win-win to me. I moved on and loaded up Forza Horizon 4 and quickly adjusted some of the settings, turning them down, thinking that the game was going to struggle to run on our hardware, and I couldn't have been more wrong. The game ran really well, and I actually went back and turned all of the settings back up to ultra high on 1080p, and I sat in front of this game and played it for hours. It ran really well on our hardware, even with the FPS getting on the lower side every now and then, the game still played really smooth, but the same couldn't be said with 1440p because I changed over to 1440p and the game just completely fell off. It was not playable at all. Even when I went back and adjusted down the settings to medium and even lower, the game still wasn't really all that playable, so I think that's where our system drew the line and just wasn't going to play it. With that being said, we obviously know it's not going to play Cyberpunk 2077, so I'm going to go ahead and run some benchmarks. That way I can give everybody something a little bit better to compare other hardware to. I'm going to use 3D Mark and run TimeSpy, and then I'm going to use Cinebench R15, which both of them you should be able to get pretty easily. They're both still on the internet. I think I've seen enough with this current configuration though, and I really would like to move on to using our upgraded hardware and seeing how much better things become from here. Unfortunately, I don't have a radiator on hand that would be compatible with all of what I have here. Because of that, I am going to instead use this Asus ROG Strix GTX 1080 Ti. I like to use this little plastic tube. It helps support the graphics card when setting up a test bench that's not in like an actual frame. Here we go, first boot with the upgraded hardware. I didn't want to plug in the Wi-Fi card because I just don't want it to start automatically downloading drivers on me. There we go. That's what we're looking for. Everything is functioning as it should. I got my network card hooked back up. I'm going to run some benchmarks so we can get results and maybe play some games before overclocking our system as much as I can, at least with what limitations I have currently. We'll see how good it can do. I started off with playing Forza Horizon 4. All of the settings are set to Ultra, and it's running at a 1440p resolution. I can immediately see the increase in picture quality. The game runs really smooth at about an average of 100 frames a second, and we're getting 1% lows anywhere between 60 frames a second all the way up to 80. I moved on to playing Fortnite at 1440p resolution, all of the settings on high, running DirectX 12, and I can get anywhere between 70 to 80 frames a second with 1% lows averaging between 50 to 60 frames a second. This game seems to be a lot more demanding than what it used to be, and on our previous configuration we were running in performance mode, which reduces picture quality to up your FPS. That way you can still run the game on lesser performing hardware. Here's our bone stock benchmark results running 3D Mark, TimeSpy, and Cinebench R15. So we have something to compare to our previous configuration and something to compare to our future configuration when we overclock our graphics card and processor. Jumping right into overclocking, I added this extra fan just so we can keep our motherboard components nice and cool while we overclock. Here is all of the settings for the processor overclock that I was able to achieve, and you can feel free to pause the video if you'd like to go over them. I didn't record the entire overclocking process because doing so, that in itself would have been longer than the video is right now. It can be a very time-consuming task, and this video isn't about how to overclock. It's about the X58 platform in general and what kind of value is left in it. When it comes to overclocking our graphics card, I really wasn't able to do much, and I think it's because I'm being limited by the power supply that I'm using, and its single PCIe power cable with two 8-pin plugs on it just is not going to cut it. I actually started to become grateful that the system's even working at all. I had it set for plus 60 on both the frequency and memory, but unclean power spikes were causing the system to blue screen on me. I wish I was able to get more out of it, but I really have to make do with what I have for now. However, I do have a 1000 watt power supply on its way that I plan on using for test benching in the future. Jumping right back into the gaming, we're going to start off with Forza Horizon 4. It's running at 1440p resolution. All of the settings are set to Ultra. The game's visuals are absolutely amazing if you ask me, and I really hate the fact that my capture card isn't going to translate that to you guys, so you kind of just have to rely on me telling you it looks absolutely amazing. Everything stayed good temperature wise. The CPU runs a little bit hot, but it's because it's overclocked and it's not getting to the point where it's thermal throttling, even though it's summertime and it's barely warm in my workroom right now. Bonus points for whoever knows what kind of car I'm in right now. Dropping right into Fortnite, the game ran really smooth. I was happy with the gameplay. Last time we were playing this game, I had a graphical setting called performance mode enabled, and what that did is reduced the image quality and gave you a performance gain. That way the game could still be played on lesser hardware. I now have DirectX 11 enabled, and that is a lot more demanding on your computer hardware, but it gives you a significantly better image quality with all of the graphic settings set to high. The game looks really crisp. The next game I load up is Cyberpunk 2077 at a 1440p resolution. All of the graphical settings are on about medium. The game is very playable. I would enjoy sitting down and beating the entire game on this computer. 60 frames a second is very playable with this game. The picture quality is decent. Obviously, who wouldn't want to play this game on a high-end computer? But it doesn't mean I would have any problems playing this game on this computer. I would enjoy doing so. I think it's kind of crazy that we're talking about an 18-year-old computer at this point playing Cyberpunk 2077 completely fine. With all of that being said, of course, Grand Theft Auto 5 gave an awesome gaming experience on this computer with all of the settings to very high, running at 1440p resolution. I was able to get frame rates anywhere between 65 to 90 frames a second, with 1% lows in the mid 50s all the way up into the mid 60s. For both online and offline gameplay. Sometimes it seems like the online gameplay can be a little bit more demanding on your hardware, but in this occasion it really wasn't all that bad. I really wanted to be able to play Call of Duty Warzone on this computer, but unfortunately that is just not going to happen. It's not going to be able to play on this hardware because the lack of a feature support called AVX, with the processor not being compatible with the actual game. This is something that you might want to watch out for if you plan on going on the X58 platform. Here are the benchmarks for our overclocked system using 3D Mark Time Spy and Cinebench R15, just like the rest of them. Here's all of our benchmark scores put together side by side for comparison. Taking all of what we have established in this video, revisiting the X58 platform in 2026, I think it is safe to say that there is still a lot of value left in the platform, even with some of the cheaper, lower-end model processors like the i7-930, which is still able to deliver some acceptable gameplay. As an enthusiast, I can understand why other enthusiasts remember this platform so fondly. When X58 launched, it wasn't just another chipset. It represented a major step forward in the custom PC building hobby and desktop computing history. Again, it introduced the first generation of Intel Core i7 processors, brought triple-channel DDR3 RAM to consumers, offered loads of PCIe lanes to support SLI and crossfire configurations. It was one of the greatest overclocking platforms for enthusiasts to push things to the absolute max. Throughout its history, it has proved to be reliable, versatile, and relevant even to this day. Whether it's powering higher-end gaming computers, professional workstations, or offering an amazing overclocking platform, it has earned its reputation for performance, reliability, and longevity. The inexpensive 6-core processors sure give this platform a second life here in 2026. It has also allowed many users to continue using their old systems long after other platforms of its same age have long died off. Of course, no platform is going to last forever, or at least I would think so. There are times when it shows its age lacking some features that modern systems have. It's not going to just support NVMe storage or SATA 6. A large number of boards don't even support USB 3. I'm sure there are going to be other features this platform is not going to support when it comes to future modern gaming. However, I think the biggest downfall for this platform currently is the price a lot of these motherboards motherboards are being sold for. Normally, I would say that as long as you can get or find an AM4 motherboard cheaper, then it's hard to justify. However, with the price direction that DDR5 and DDR4 RAM seems to be going in, these old DDR3 platforms might be a lot of people's saving grace when it comes to being able to build a budget gaming PC and run some of the games that they would like to play. It makes most sense to build on this platform if you were able to get a motherboard either really cheap or for free. So next time when you're on eBay and you're scrolling through and see an X58 motherboard selling really cheap, you might not want to overlook it. Thank you for watching the video. I know it was a long one. Please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. I am new to this, I'm still learning, and it would help me significantly. Thank you again.